Korsval had seen approximately 3,472 applicants walk through the gates of the Galactic War Academy in his 30 years as head combat instructor. Warriors from the Krell Empire standing 9 feet tall with 4 arms capable of crushing titanium. Shadow assassins from the Valkyrie homeworld, their movements so fluid they seemed to bend light itself. Even a few of those terrifying Thorgrim berserkers, who were essentially walking biological tanks wrapped in bad attitudes and worse hygiene. But this was a new low. "You have got to be kidding me," Korval muttered under his breath, his 3 eyes blinking in rapid succession, a Xinthian gesture equivalent to a human rubbing their temples in disbelief. His purple-scaled skin rippled with suppressed laughter as he watched the human boy shuffle into the examination arena. Danny Reeves, according to the datapad clutched in Korval's clawed hand, was 17 Earth years old. He stood maybe 5'8", which was adorable considering the Krell candidate beside him towered at 9'3". The human's physique suggested his primary form of exercise involved running to the refrigerator during commercial breaks. His brown hair stuck up in several directions, clearly having lost a battle with a pillow that morning. And his outfit, by the ancestors, his outfit looked like he had ransacked a donation bin behind a failing Earth shopping mall. Worn-out sneakers with holes near the toes, faded blue jacket with something called a band logo on the back, pants that were somehow both too long and too short simultaneously. The human was chewing something. Gum, perhaps. Just casually chewing, hands in his pockets, looking around the arena like he was waiting for a bus rather than standing in the most elite military academy in 7 sectors. "Is that one lost?" asked Zara, Korval's assistant instructor, her 4 arms crossed in identical gestures of confusion. "Should we direct it to the visitor center?" "Negative," Korval sighed, checking his datapad again, hoping the translator had malfunctioned. "That is applicant 773, human, from Earth, Sector 9. The Deathworld?" "The very same." Zara's mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement or concern.
Possibly both.
"Well, this should be entertaining in the way watching someone juggle live grenades is entertaining." Korval had to agree. Around Danny Reeves stood the galaxy's finest warrior candidates. To his left, Zara from the Thexan Empire, her crimson skin gleaming with oil, applied for ceremonial purposes, muscles that could probably crush a small vehicle rippling beneath her armor. To his right, Brutok the Krell, forearms already flexing in anticipation, his gray hide covered in ritual battle scars that he had definitely earned and not purchased from a cosmetic surgeon. Behind them, a dozen more specimens of peak physical perfection from across known space, races bred for combat, trained from birth in the arts of war, enhanced through genetic modification, cybernetic augmentation, or good old-fashioned Darwinian selection involving lots of predators and minimal survival rates. And then there was Danny, who looked like a strong breeze might knock him over. "Attention, applicants." Korval's voice boomed across the arena, amplified by the facility's sound system. His tone carried the weight of 3 decades of turning soft candidates into hardened warriors, or more often sending them home in tears. "Welcome to the Galactic War Academy entrance examination. You stand here because you believe you possess the skills, the strength, and the spirit to join the most elite fighting force in known space." He paused for dramatic effect, letting his gaze sweep across the assembled candidates. Most stood at attention. Proper military bearing, eyes forward. Danny was examining his fingernails. "Ancestors give me strength," Korval thought. "The test is simple," he continued, gesturing toward the center of the arena where a circular platform rose from the floor. Red warning lights activated around its perimeter, casting an ominous glow. "Survive 3 minutes against a Mark 7 combat drone. Defeat is acceptable, cowardice is not. Death, while discouraged, is technically possible, so please try to avoid that outcome. We have paperwork." Nervous laughter from a few candidates, not from Zara or Brutok. Naturally, they were professionals. Danny, however, had stopped examining his nails and was now staring at the platform with what could only be described as mild interest, like someone observing a moderately engaging commercial. "Combat drones are calibrated to each candidate's species profile," Korval explained, pulling up holographic displays that showed previous test footage. A Krell candidate being struck with energy bolts calibrated to challenge but not kill their thick hides. A Velikari dodging plasma fire while trying to reach the drone's weak points. They will test your reflexes, your tactical thinking, your pain tolerance, and your will to continue fighting when victory seems impossible. The hologram shifted to show a candidate being thrown across the platform, getting up, being thrown again. The crowd watched in respectful silence. For the human, Corval added, unable to keep the sarcasm entirely out of his voice, the drone will be calibrated to significantly reduced settings. We would prefer not to accidentally create an interstellar incident on day one. A few snickers from the crowd. Danny just shrugged, pulling his hands from his pockets and cracking his knuckles in a gesture that Corval's database informed him was meant to be intimidating. It was not. It was like watching a baby predator trying to roar for the first time. Adorable and slightly sad. First candidate, Corval announced, checking his roster. Zara of House Thexar, Crimson Legion, conqueror of the Trials of Cathara, holder of 17 battle commendations. Zara stepped forward, every movement precise and powerful. The crowd murmured with appreciation. And you will be going. Corval looked at his datapad, then at Danny, then back at the datapad with the desperate hope that the words would change. Last, after we see how real warriors perform. Danny gave him a thumbs up. Another adorable human gesture that Corval's database defined as approval or agreement. This, Corval thought as Zara stepped onto the platform and the combat drone descended from the ceiling on anti-gravity suspensors, is going to be the longest examination day of my entire career. The human was still smiling. And worse, he still had that gum, just chewing away, watching the drone power up its weapons systems with all the concern of someone watching paint dry. Ancestors preserve us all. 23 candidates had gone before Danny Reeves, 23 warriors representing the finest combat traditions of their respective species. Zara had lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds, demolishing her drone with textbook precision, and enough force to leave scorch marks on the platform. Brutok had gone full berserker mode, taking hits that would have hospitalized lesser beings while systematically dismantling his opponent with all 4 arms working in perfect coordination. The average survival time was 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Respectable, professional, exactly what Corval expected from qualified candidates. And now, finally, mercifully, they had reached the last applicant. Danny Reeves, Corval announced with all the enthusiasm of someone reading a grocery list. Human, Earth. Please step onto the platform and try not to die immediately. We have a schedule to maintain. Danny spit his gum into a nearby trash receptacle, missed, shrugged, and walked onto the platform with his hands still in his pockets. The combat drone, having been recalibrated to what the technicians called, quote, extremely gentle mode, unquote, descended from the ceiling. Its weapon systems hummed at roughly 30% power, enough to hurt, not enough to seriously injure a standard human. Probably. Begin, Corval said, starting the timer. The drone opened with a standard assessment strike, firing a low-powered energy bolt at Danny's center mass. Standard procedure. Every candidate had faced this exact opening. Most dodged left or right with practiced efficiency. Danny tripped over his own shoelaces. The bolt sailed over his head as he stumbled forward, arms windmilling, somehow maintaining balance through what appeared to be sheer confusion rather than skill. He looked down at his feet like they had personally betrayed him. Oh, come on, Danny muttered, actually stopping to retie his shoe while the drone recalibrated for a second shot. Is he seriously? Thari began, all 4 of her hands gesturing at the platform in disbelief. Yes, Corval replied flatly. Yes, he is. The drone fired again. Danny finished tying his shoe and stood up directly into the bolt's path. At the last possible microsecond, he bent down to tie his other shoe and the energy blast went over his back, close enough that his jacket smoked slightly. Did he just? One of the other instructors started. Do not finish that sentence, Corval warned. I am trying very hard to maintain my professional composure and speculation will not help. Danny finally finished with his shoes and looked up at the drone which hovered 10 feet away, probably as confused as an artificial intelligence could be. Okay, buddy, Danny said, cracking his neck. Let's dance. What happened next could only be described as organized chaos, having a fist fight with random chance, and both sides losing spectacularly. Danny charged the drone, not in a tactical combat crouch, not with any recognizable fighting stance, but in a full-on sprint that looked like he was running for a bus he was about to miss. The drone, programmed for conventional combat responses, fired a spread pattern designed to force the target into a predictable dodge pattern. Danny did not dodge predictably. Danny did not dodge at all. Really. He sort of lurched sideways, stumbled on absolutely nothing, and somehow ended up outside the blast radius through what could only be called aggressive incompetence. "This is painful to watch," Zara commented from the sidelines, her arms crossed. "I cannot look away," Brutok rumbled, all four eyes fixed on the platform. Danny grabbed a handful of dirt from a decorative plant near the platform's edge, something the landscaping team was definitely going to hear about later, and threw it at the drone's sensor array. This was, objectively, the dumbest possible tactic. Drones had multiple redundant sensors. A little dirt would accomplish nothing except making the thrower look foolish. Except the dirt hit the drone's primary optical sensor at the exact moment it was cycling through targeting protocols, and the system hiccuped, just for half a second. The drone's next 3 shots went wide, hitting the walls and ceiling. "Lucky," Corval said firmly. "That was pure luck." "Agreed," Thuray said, but she did not sound entirely convinced. Danny, apparently encouraged by this success, looked around for more improvised weapons. His eyes locked onto the overhead maintenance pipes running across the arena ceiling. They were decorative, added by an architect who valued aesthetics over function. They were never meant to support weight. "No," Corval said, "he would not." Danny jumped, caught the pipe, and swung himself forward like some kind of deranged acrobat. The pipe groaned under his weight but held. Barely. He kicked off, launching himself at the drone in a flying kick that had absolutely no technique behind it whatsoever. He missed the drone by 3 feet. But his momentum carried him into the drone's flight path as it tried to reposition, and they collided mid-air in a tangle of limbs and machinery. Danny grabbed onto the drone like he was hugging a very angry mechanical dog, and they spun together toward the ground. They hit the platform hard. Danny rolled away, the drone sparked and tried to right itself. 2 minutes and 47 seconds on the timer. Danny got up. His jacket was torn. His face was scraped. He was bleeding from a cut above his eye, and he was grinning like an absolute maniac. "Is that all you got?" he shouted at the drone. The drone, clearly having had enough of this nonsense, activated its close combat protocols and rushed forward with a stunning appendage extended. Danny, instead of dodging properly, grabbed a loose piece of platform debris, the same piece that had broken off when they crashed, and threw it. Not at the drone, at the floor in front of the drone. The debris bounced, flew up, and hit the drone's anti-gravity stabilizer at the exact perfect angle to destabilize it. The drone wobbled, overcorrected, and crashed into the wall with a sound like a very expensive accident. 3 minutes and 2 seconds. Danny stood there, breathing hard, bleeding, filthy, and victorious. He raised both fists in the air.
"Yeah, did you see that?"
"I totally meant to do that." The arena was silent. Absolutely silent. Corval looked at his datapad, looked at the wrecked drone, looked at Danny, who was now waving at the crowd like he had just won a sporting championship, looked at Thura, who was making a complicated expression with all 4 of her faces. "Lowest score in Academy history," Corval announced, his voice carefully neutral. "Holm, bad effectiveness, 2 out of 10. Tactical awareness, 1 out of 10. Survival instinct, apparently 11 out of 10, which should not be mathematically possible. Style points, -3. He paused, watching Danny try to climb off the platform and nearly fall again. "Welcome to the Galactic War Academy, Cadet Reeves. Ancestors help us all." Danny pumped his fist. "Awesome. Do you guys have pizza here?" Corval closed his eyes and wondered if early retirement was still an option. The first week of training at the Galactic War Academy traditionally separated the warriors from the wishful thinkers. Corval had seen countless promising candidates wash out during these initial 7 days, broken by the relentless physical demands, the brutal sparring sessions, or simply the crushing realization that they were not as special as they had believed. Danny Reeves, however, appeared to be operating under entirely different rules. Possibly rules he had made up himself. Possibly no rules at all. Day 1. Strength assessment. The test was simple enough. Lift progressively heavier weights until failure. Zara had managed 4,000 pounds before her muscles finally protested. Brutok had hit 6,200 with all four arms working together, grinning the entire time. The average across all cadets was around 3,000 pounds. Danny had managed 75 pounds before his arms started shaking like malfunctioning machinery. "The 75, Corval repeated, checking his datapad to ensure the sensors had not malfunctioned. "You lifted 75 pounds. "Hey, that is almost my body weight," Danny protested, rubbing his arms. "That is impressive where I come from." "Where you come from must be a gentle paradise of pillows and soft breezes," Zara said, not even trying to hide her contempt. She had taken an immediate and passionate dislike to Danny, which Corval suspected had something to do with the fact that he had somehow passed the entrance exam despite being, in her words, quote, aggressively mediocre at everything except not dying, unquote. "We have bears," Danny countered. "And sharks. And those murder hornets that showed up a few years back. You have named your predators." "How terrifying," Zara said, her voice dripping with sarcasm so thick it could be weaponized. Day 2, speed trials, standard sprint across a 100-meter obstacle course. Zara had finished in 8.3 seconds, moving so fast she was basically a crimson blur. Brutok, despite his massive frame, had clocked in at 11.7 seconds. Even the slowest cadet had managed under 20 seconds. Danny had gotten tangled in the first net obstacle, fallen into a mud pit, somehow ended up running the wrong direction for approximately 30 seconds, and finally crossed the finish line at 4 minutes and change. "I got lost," he explained, mud dripping from his hair. "The course is a straight line," Corval roared, his professional composure finally cracking. "A very confusing straight line," Danny insisted. Day 3. Endurance assessment. A simple 10-kilometer run in full combat gear. Nobody expected Danny to match the top performers, but even the most pessimistic projections had him finishing within 2 hours. He finished in 3 hours and 17 minutes, having stopped multiple times to catch his breath, drink water, and once inexplicably to watch a bird. "It was a cool bird," Danny said when questioned. "We do not have those on Earth." "It was a standard Thesaran sparrow," Zara informed him, consulting her database, one of the most common avian species on the planet. "Still cool," Danny maintained, stretching his clearly aching legs. But here was the thing that was starting to genuinely disturb Corval. Danny kept showing up. Every morning at 0500 hours sharp, there he was, bruised from yesterday's disasters, limping from the day before's catastrophes, sporting a black eye from sparring, a split lip from falling during drills, bandages on both hands from an incident involving the climbing wall that nobody wanted to discuss in detail. And yet there he stood, ready for more punishment, usually eating some bizarre earth food item and humming a tune that Corval's audio analysis software classified as, quote, aggressively annoying, unquote. "What is that?" Zara demanded on day 4, pointing at Danny's breakfast with the same expression one might use when discovering a biohazard. "Peanut butter and banana sandwich," Danny said happily, taking an enormous bite. "I would rather eat recycled plasma coolant," Zara replied. "More for me," Danny said, shrugging. Day 5. Sparring drills. This was where things got genuinely concerning. Brutok had been paired with Danny for basic hand-to-hand combat training, under strict instructions to go easy on the human. Extremely easy. Gentle, even. Brutok had tried. He really had. But Brutok's species had 4 arms, each capable of striking with enough force to dent steel plating. His idea of gentle and everyone else's idea of gentle existed in different universes. The first accidental hit had sent Danny flying 6 feet. The second had knocked the wind completely out of his lungs. The third had resulted in Danny lying on the mat, staring at the ceiling, making a sound like a deflating tire. "My apologies, small human," Brutok rumbled, genuinely distressed. "I barely touched you." "You hit me with a truck," Danny wheezed. "Felt like getting hit by a truck." "What is a truck?" Brutok asked. "Large earth vehicle," Danny explained, slowly sitting up and immediately regretting that decision. "Heavy, made of metal, hurts when it hits you. Ask me how I know." "How do you know?" Brutok asked, concerned. "I got hit by one once. During driver's training. Long story," Danny said, accepting Brutok's offered hand, all 4 of them, to pull himself upright. By day 6, Danny had become the Academy's unofficial mascot and official punching bag. Other cadets would watch his training sessions the way people watch disaster footage, horrified but unable to look away. There were betting pools on how long he would last. Most predictions ranged from 1 week to possibly 2 if he was exceptionally stubborn or exceptionally stupid. Nobody was betting on him actually graduating. "Why do you keep coming back?" Corval finally asked on day 7 after Danny had failed yet another physical assessment, this time involving climbing a rope that even the instructors found challenging. Danny had made it approximately 8 feet before his grip failed, and he fell onto the safety mat with a sound that was 50% impact and 50% regret. "Because I am not a quitter," Danny said simply, lying on the mat and staring up at the ceiling. "Also, I already paid the registration fee and that was non-refundable. Earth dollars are not cheap, you know." "Your species values money over personal safety?" Zara asked, incredulous. "You clearly have not met humanity," Danny said, finally rolling over and standing up, joints popping in ways that made Corval wince. "We invented insurance scams. We jump out of perfectly good aircraft for fun. We have an entire sport based on hitting each other in the face repeatedly until someone falls down." "Barbaric," Zara muttered. "We call it boxing. Very popular. Great cardio," Danny said, then paused, pulling out another one of his strange earth sandwiches from his bag. This one appeared to involve meat, cheese, and some kind of sauce that smelled vaguely toxic. Also, fun fact, humans have been fighting each other for like thousands of years. Wars, battles, duels, bar fights, arguments over parking spaces, you name it. The training ground went quiet. Corval's head snapped up from his datapad. "Excuse me," he said slowly. "Oh yeah," Danny continued, completely oblivious to the sudden attention. "We got really good at killing each other before we even made it to space. Had to be good at it, you know, because we spent most of our history divided into different groups, all competing for resources on the same planet. No escape, no running away to another world, just us and our neighbors fighting over land, water, food, religion, politics, who had the better sports team, whatever." He took a bite of his sandwich, chewed thoughtfully. "By the time we figured out space travel, we had like 10,000 years of combat experience, just against ourselves. Kind of messed up when you think about it," Danny said. The training ground remained absolutely silent. Corval looked at Thera. Thera looked back at Corval. Both of them were having the same thought, a thought that was rapidly evolving from amusing observation to genuine concern. This weak, clumsy disaster of a species had spent millennia perfecting the art of war against itself, and they were still around to talk about it. "Anyway," Danny said, finishing his sandwich and clapping his hands together. "What is next? More rope climbing? I think I almost had it that last time." He had not almost had it. He had not even remotely had it. But he was ready to try again, and that, Corval was beginning to realize, might be the most terrifying thing about humans. They just kept trying. The annual war games were a sacred tradition at the Galactic War Academy. Dating back 217 years, teams of 5 cadets were dropped into 100 square kilometers of hostile terrain on Thesera Prime's northern continent, complete with actual hostile wildlife, unpredictable weather, and terrain that ranged from dense forest to rocky cliffs to swampland that smelled like regret and tasted worse. The objective was simple: capture the enemy team's flag and return it to your base. Last team standing won. There were stun weapons, limited supplies, and absolutely no rules about tactics beyond, quote, "try not to cause permanent damage," unquote. Corval stood in the command center watching the holographic display as 6 teams deployed to their starting positions. Team Alpha, led by Zara, consisted of 5 Thexan warriors who moved like a precision military unit. Team Beta, commanded by Brutok, featured 4 Curial powerhouses who could probably punch through a mountain if properly motivated. Teams Gamma, Delta, and Epsilon were similarly stacked with the Academy's top performers. And then there was Team Omega. "You put the human on the weakest team," Thara observed, her mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement. "That seems cruel, even by your standards." "I put the human with 4 other cadets who barely passed the entrance requirements," Corval corrected. "It is called balancing. Also, yes, it is absolutely cruel, and I am at peace with this decision." Team Omega consisted of Danny, a nervous Velen scout named Pip who jumped at shadows, a Korthian engineer called Rax who preferred books to combat, a Yulani medic named Sela, who had accidentally applied to War Academy instead of medical school, and a Dravine tracker called Nyx who was good at finding things but terrible at fighting. The betting pool gave them 30 minutes before elimination. Korval had generously estimated 45. All teams, deploy, Korval announced, over the command frequency. War games begin in 3-2-1 mark. The holographic display lit up with movement. Team Alpha moved out in textbook formation, aggressive and coordinated. Team Beta split into two pairs using their superior strength to cover ground quickly. The other teams employed various standard tactics that Korval had seen hundreds of times before. Team Omega did not move. "Are they broken?" Zara asked, zooming in on Omega's position. "Their vitals are fine," Korval said, checking his readouts. "They are just standing there." For the first hour, Team Omega remained at their starting position while Danny did something that no other cadet had done in the 217-year history of the war games. He watched. Using Nyx's tracking skills and Rax's technical knowledge, Danny had jury-rigged their communications equipment to passively monitor the other team's movements. Not intercept their communications, that would be detectable, but track their signal patterns, analyze their movement speeds, map their tactical approaches. "What is he doing?" Zara asked, fascinated despite herself. "He is learning how they think," Korval said slowly, leaning forward. "He is not trying to beat them yet. He is studying them." After exactly 1 hour and 7 minutes, Danny made his move. "Team Alpha, this is command," Danny said over the comm system, perfectly mimicking Korval's voice. The human had apparently spent his free time recording and analyzing the instructor's speech patterns. Clever, disturbing, but clever. "Team Beta is moving on your position from the northeast. They are attempting a flanking maneuver. Recommend immediate response." "Command, this is Alpha Leader." Zara's voice crackled back. Korval's 3 eyes widened. Did he just impersonate me? "Extremely well, I might add," Zara said. "I barely caught the difference." 30 seconds later, Danny used Rax's technical skills to send a fake distress signal that appeared to come from Team Gamma, broadcasting it on a frequency he knew Team Beta monitored. "This is Gamma, under attack by Alpha, requesting assistance coordinates." The message was garbled, desperate, perfectly crafted to sound authentic. Brutok's team changed course immediately, heading toward the false coordinates. "He is making them fight each other," Korval breathed. "The clever little disaster is turning them against each other." What followed could only be described as psychological warfare conducted by someone who had clearly learned from humanity's long, messy history of lying, cheating, and generally being sneaky when outmatched. Danny had Nyx leave false trail markers suggesting Team Omega was moving south, while they actually circled north. He had Rax create fake comm chatter suggesting they were injured and desperate, drawing Team Delta into an ambush position, where Pip, despite being terrified, managed to stun 2 opponents before they realized they had been tricked. He used Sela's medical knowledge to identify which cadets would be most affected by the swamp terrain and led 3 teams directly through the worst sections, slowing them down and exhausting them while Team Omega took the high ground. But the masterstroke came 2 hours into the exercise. Danny had Rax hack into the flag monitoring system, not to cheat but to send false flag location updates to all teams simultaneously. Each team received slightly different coordinates, all of them wrong, all of them leading to positions where Danny had spent the last hour setting up traps using basic materials. Tripwires made from vine cables. Pit covers disguised with leaves and mud. A deadfall trap constructed from logs that would not seriously injure anyone but would definitely stun them long enough to be tagged out. "This is insane," Zara said, watching 3 separate teams stumble into Danny's traps within 15 minutes of each other. "This should not be working." "It is working because nobody expects it," Korval said, unable to keep the admiration out of his voice. "Standard Academy tactics assume direct confrontation. They assume honor. They assume your opponent will fight fairly. The human assumes none of these things," Zara finished. "Correct." Team Alpha and Team Beta finally encountered each other in a narrow canyon, both having been manipulated into believing the other had attacked them first. The fight was brief, brutal, and resulted in both teams being reduced to 1 member each. Danny, meanwhile, had sent Nyx to actually steal Team Epsilon's flag while they were busy responding to a fake emergency beacon. The theft was so smooth, so professional that Team Epsilon did not realize their flag was gone until they returned to base and found a note that read, "Thanks for playing, sorry about the confusion, Danny." He apologized, Corval said, staring at the note via helmet cam footage. He stole their flag and apologized. He stole their flag and apologized. Humans are weird, Zara concluded. By hour 4, Team Omega had 3 flags and had not fired a single shot in direct combat. They had won through misdirection, manipulation, trap setting, and Danny's apparently infinite capacity for underhanded tactics that technically did not violate any rules because nobody had thought to make rules against them. The final confrontation came when Zara, the last member of Team Alpha still active, tracked Team Omega to their base through sheer determination and skill. She found Danny sitting on a log eating another one of his incomprehensible sandwiches, surrounded by 4 captured flags. "You cheated," Zara said, her weapon raised. "Show me which rule I broke," Danny replied, taking another bite. "I will wait." Zara checked her tactical manual. Her expression grew increasingly frustrated as she realized he was technically correct, the worst kind of correct. "You did not fight with honor," she finally said. "No," Danny agreed cheerfully. "I fought to win. There is a difference. My planet learned that difference the hard way over thousands of years of fighting ourselves. Want a sandwich? I packed extra." Zara stunned him anyway, on principle, but Team Omega had already transmitted their victory signal. In the command center, Corval sat back in his chair, his scales rippling in a complex pattern that indicated deep thought mixed with concern. "I need to update the war games rules," he said quietly. "What are you going to add?" Zara asked. "I have no idea," Corval admitted. "How do you write rules against creativity, deception, and aggressive psychological manipulation?" "You could ban humans," Zara suggested. "Too late for that," Corval said, watching Danny wake up from the stun, check that his team had won, and immediately start celebrating with the worst victory dance Corval had ever witnessed. Far, far too late. The news of Team Omega's victory spread through the academy, like wildfire through dry grass. Within 6 hours everyone knew, the human, the weakest cadet, the walking disaster who could barely lift his own body weight, had won the war games without firing a single shot through tactics so unconventional that the instructors were still arguing about whether they should be legal. Zara had not taken it well. "I demand a rematch," she announced, storming into Corval's office 3 days later, her crimson skin practically glowing with barely contained fury. "Single combat, me and the human, standard arena rules." "Zara, that seems excessive," Corval began, but he was already pulling up the scheduling system because deep down he absolutely wanted to see this happen, for research purposes, and also because it would be extremely entertaining. "He humiliated me," Zara insisted, her fists clenched. "He humiliated all of us. He won through cowardice and tricks." "He won through strategy and adaptation," Corval corrected mildly. "But yes, fine. I will arrange the match. Try not to kill him. The paperwork is truly excessive." Word spread even faster this time. By the evening, every cadet, every instructor, and half the administrative staff had requested access to the arena surveillance feeds. This was going to be the most watched training bout in Academy history. Danny, when informed of the challenge, had shrugged and said, "Sure, sounds fun. Is there prize money?" There was not prize money. There was only pain, humiliation, and the slim possibility of glory. The arena was packed, not physically. The actual combat would take place in a sealed training ring, but virtually. Every screen in the academy displayed the feed. Cadets gathered in common areas. Instructors abandoned their duties. Even the kitchen staff stopped cooking to watch. "This is going to be a massacre," Zara predicted, settling in next to Corval at the command console. "Oh, absolutely," Corval agreed. "The only question is how quickly." Zara entered the arena first, moving with the confident grace of someone who had been training for combat since she could walk. She wore standard training armor, carried a regulation stun sword, and looked like she could bench press a small spacecraft. Her expression was carved from stone and bad intentions. Danny entered second, still wearing his worn-out sneakers because he had apparently never learned about proper footwear. He carried his stun sword like it was a broom handle, grinning that idiotic grin that made him look like he had no idea how much danger he was in. He knew exactly how much danger he was in. He just did not care. Standard rules, Corville announced over the arena speakers. First to 3 solid hits wins. Stun weapons only. Excessive force will result in disqualification. Begin on my mark. Zara rolled her shoulders, muscles rippling. Danny waved at the cameras. 3, 2, 1. Mark. Zara moved like lightning wrapped in fury. Her first strike was textbook perfect, a downward slash designed to force Danny's guard up, followed immediately by a leg sweep that should have put him on the ground in under 2 seconds. Should have. Danny's guard came up wrong, at the wrong angle, with terrible form, but somehow through sheer random chance or possibly divine intervention his blade caught hers. The leg sweep connected perfectly, and Danny went down hard, rolling across the mat. First point, Zara, Corville announced. Danny got up, rubbing his hip. Ow. Okay, I felt that. You are really strong, like weirdly strong. Do you take supplements? Is that allowed? Zara did not dignify that with a response. She attacked again, faster this time. A combination strike that had won her 17 tournament victories. High slash, mid-thrust, spinning kick, disarm attempt. Danny blocked the first hit by accident, took the thrust on his armor with a wheeze, ducked under the kick because he tripped on his own feet again, and somehow kept his sword through sheer death grip. Second point, Zara, Corville called as Danny staggered back. Okay, Danny panted, breathing hard already. You are very good at this. Has anyone told you that? Because they should. You are like really talented. Stop talking, Zara growled, circling him. Cannot stop. It is how I process stress, Danny said, matching her circle. His guard up but still completely wrong. Fun fact, talking during combat is actually a human thing. We do it to distract opponents, assess their mental state, and also because sometimes we just cannot shut up. Zara attacked again, and again, and again. And Danny kept getting back up. The third point came from a strike to his shoulder that should have numbed his entire arm. Danny switched hands, fighting left-handed now, even worse than before. The fourth point, a thrust to his midsection that doubled him over, gasping. The fifth point, a pommel strike to his head that left him seeing stars. Match to Zara, someone in the crowd called out. No, Corville said slowly, checking the rules. Standard rules are first to 3 hits. We are doing extended format, first to 5 hits, because I want to see how long the human lasts. This was a lie. Standard rules were first to 3, but nobody corrected him because everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Danny got up from the 5th hit, blood trickling from a cut above his eye, the same eye that had been injured during his entrance exam. His breathing was ragged. His stance was a disaster. His sword arm was shaking. His stance was a disaster. His sword arm was shaking. And he was still smiling. You know what is weird? Danny said, wiping blood from his face. You have a tell. Zara paused. What?
A tell. A pattern.
Danny continued, circling again, watching her carefully now. Every time you are about to do that spinning move, the really cool one, you shift your weight to your back leg first, just a tiny bit, like half a second before. I do not, Zara said, but her eyes narrowed. Yeah, you do, Danny insisted, and when you are going for a head strike you look at the target first, just a glance. Most people would not notice, but I have been getting hit by you for like 5 minutes now, so I have had time to study. This was when the fight changed. Zara attacked again, the same combination she had used before, but this time when she shifted her weight for the spinning kick, Danny was not where he was supposed to be. He had moved early, reading her telegraph, and her kick hit nothing but air. His counterstrike was ugly, graceless, and off balance, but it connected with her ribs. Point, Danny, Corville heard himself say. The arena erupted in noise. Half shock, half disbelief. All entertainment. Zara's expression went from confident to serious. She started using different combinations, more complex patterns, trying to hide her tells. But Danny was adapting now, learning in real time the way only someone who had been losing fights their entire life could learn. He took 2 more hits, hard ones that left bruises everyone could see forming through his armor. But he scored another point, this one from slipping inside her guard by being smaller, faster, more willing to take a hit to land one. 5-2, Zara's favor. But Danny would not stay down. Every time she put him on the mat, he got back up. Every time she landed a clean hit, he made another terrible joke, analyzed another pattern, adjusted another response. "Why do you not quit?" Zara demanded, frustration bleeding into her voice. "Because quitting is boring," Danny replied, blocking a strike that would have ended the fight. "Also, I am from Earth. We invented stubbornness, trademarked it, have lawyers defending it." The fight dragged on. 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. Zara was still technically winning, but she was slowing down, her perfect form beginning to crack under the weight of fighting an opponent who refused to acknowledge he was beaten. Danny was a mess, bleeding from multiple cuts, bruised everywhere, breathing like he had run a marathon, but his eyes were focused now, tracking every movement, learning every pattern. When Zara went for another spinning kick, Danny ducked under it, used his smaller size to roll past her guard and landed a strike on her back. 5-3. The crowd was going insane. 2 more exchanges. Zara landed another hit, a perfect thrust that should have ended it. 6-3. Danny stayed on his feet through sheer spite, and what Corval was beginning to suspect was mild brain damage from refusing to acknowledge pain. Then Danny did something no trained warrior would ever do. He threw his sword. Not at Zara, at the ground in front of her. She dodged instinctively, her trained reflexes responding to the unexpected projectile. For half a second, she was off balance, distracted. Danny lunged forward, unarmed, and tackled her. They went down together in a tangle of limbs. Danny grabbed her sword arm, held on with both hands, and used his entire body weight to keep her pinned for exactly 2 seconds before she threw him off. But in those 2 seconds, he had stolen her sword. "That is cheating," someone shouted. "Show me the rule," Danny gasped, now holding 2 swords, both of them pointed at Zara with absolutely no proper technique. Zara stood slowly, staring at him with an expression that was equal parts rage and something that might have been respect. "You are insane," she said. "I am creative," Danny corrected. "Earth thing. We learn it from fighting each other." The final exchange lasted 6 seconds. Zara charged, unarmed but still dangerous. Danny swung both swords wild and uncoordinated. One missed completely. The other, through pure luck or perhaps the universe's twisted sense of humor, connected with her shoulder. "Match to Danny," Corval announced into stunned silence. 6-5. Danny stood there, swaying, both swords held up in victory, blood and sweat mixing on his face. He looked like he had been in a shuttle crash. He looked like he should be in medical bay. He looked absolutely triumphant. "Did I win?" Danny asked, squinting through the blood. "I cannot see very well right now. Everything is kind of blurry and there might be 2 of you." Then he collapsed, still smiling, unconscious before he hit the mat. The arena remained silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then Brutok started clapping. Slowly, all 4 hands creating a thunderous rhythm. Others joined in. Within moments, the entire academy was applauding. Zara walked over to Danny's unconscious form, looked down at him for a long moment, then knelt and picked up both swords. "Crazy human," she muttered, but she was smiling too. The medical bay smelled of antiseptic and what Corval's translator unhelpfully identified as, quote, "human stubbornness," unquote. Danny lay unconscious on a medical bed covered in regenerative patches, bruises forming a colorful map across his visible skin. The medical staff had assured Corval that the human would be fine. Humans apparently healed with disturbing efficiency, but they recommended keeping him sedated for at least 6 hours so his body could recover without him doing something stupid. Which, knowing Danny, was excellent advice. Corval sat in the medical bay's observation room with Thura and 3 other senior instructors, reviewing combat footage on a holographic display. They had watched the fight 4 times now, analyzing every movement, every decision, every inexplicable moment where Danny should have lost but somehow had not. "I do not understand," said Vectress, a Krell combat master who had trained champions for 40 years. "His technique is atrocious. His strength is laughable. His speed is below average even for his species. By every measurable metric he should have been eliminated in the first 30 seconds. And yet," Thara said, gesturing at the frozen image of Danny holding both swords in victory, "here we are." "Run the adaptation analysis again," Corval ordered. The hologram shifted, tracking Danny's defensive responses throughout the fight. The first minute showed him blocking randomly, no pattern, pure survival instinct. The second minute showed slight improvements, his blocks becoming more targeted. By minute 5 he was predicting Zara's combinations. By minute 10, he was actively countering them. That learning curve should not be possible, Vectress said. His forearms crossed in identical gestures of confusion. Neural plasticity does not work that fast. Muscle memory requires repetition over weeks, months, years. Unless you have been getting hit your entire life, Caraval said quietly, something clicking into place in his mind. Unless your entire species has been getting hit for thousands of years and learned to adapt or die. He pulled up Earth's historical database, the one he had largely ignored because what could a pre-space civilization teach the galaxy's premier military academy? The data scrolled past. Wars, thousands of them. Tens of thousands. Conflicts ranging from two individuals fighting over resources to global confrontations involving millions. Humans fighting humans with sticks and stones, then bronze and iron, then gunpowder and explosives, then nuclear weapons capable of destroying their entire planet which they had apparently invented, and then decided not to use after a few terrifying demonstrations. They nearly killed themselves, Thara breathed, reading over his shoulder. Multiple times, and they just kept going. Look at the technological progression, another instructor said, pointing at the timeline. They went from basic tools to space travel in approximately 10,000 years. That is impossibly fast. It is fast, when you are constantly trying to kill each other and need better weapons, Caraval said. The pieces falling together now. They did not develop technology for exploration or trade first. They developed it for war. Everything else came second. He pulled up biological data. Human pain tolerance, average for their size. Human strength, below galactic average. Human speed, unremarkable. Human intelligence, decent but not exceptional. But then he found the other metrics, the ones that did not fit neatly into standard combat assessments. Human endurance, top 5% galactic-wide. Humans could run for hours, days even, chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Human adaptability, off the charts. Humans lived everywhere on their planet. Frozen wastelands, burning deserts, thin mountain air, dense jungles. They adapted to everything and ate nearly anything. Human creativity under pressure, unmeasurable by standard tests because humans did not think in standard patterns. They improvised, invented, created solutions that made no logical sense but somehow worked. And human stubbornness, which was not technically a combat metric but absolutely should be. They are not weak, Caraval said slowly, staring at Danny's sleeping form through the observation window. We have been measuring them wrong. We have been asking how strong are they, how fast are they, how much can they lift? Wrong questions. What is the right question? Tari asked. How much punishment can they absorb, and still keep fighting? That, Caraval said. How quickly can they learn from mistakes? How creative can they be when desperate? How many times can you knock them down before they stop getting back up? He zoomed in on a particular moment in the fight footage. Danny on the ground, bleeding, exhausted, every rational calculation suggesting he should surrender. And then Danny getting back up anyway, making another joke, adjusting his strategy. They do not win despite being weak, Caraval continued, the realization settling over him like cold water. They win because they are weak, and had to learn every dirty trick, every underhanded tactic, every psychological manipulation, every creative solution just to survive on a planet that was trying to kill them while they were simultaneously trying to kill each other. That is terrifying, Vectress said flatly. That is humanity, Caraval corrected. We have been training warriors for 200 years using methods designed for species that evolved in relatively safe environments. Species that developed honor codes and fair combat because they could afford to. Species that had the luxury of strength or speed or natural weapons. He gestured at the Earth database. Humans had none of that. They had intelligence and endurance and spite, and they used those things to claw their way to the top of their food chain, then started fighting each other because apparently they were bored. What do we do with this information? Thare asked practically. Kurzweil was quiet for a long moment, watching Danny sleep, watching the rise and fall of his chest, watching the medical monitors track a biology that refused to quit even while unconscious. We stop underestimating them, he finally said, and we start worrying about what happens when more of them arrive. In the medical bed, Danny stirred slightly, mumbling something in his sleep that the translator picked up as, "No, Mom. 5 more minutes, I promise I will clean my room." Even unconscious and drugged, the human was somehow endearing and disturbing in equal measure. "Ancestors help us all," Corval muttered. "Amen to that," Zara agreed, and none of them bothered to correct her use of the human religious expression. It seemed appropriate somehow. Danny was released from medical bay the next morning with a list of restrictions longer than his arm, most of which included phrases like, "Do not engage in strenuous activity, avoid combat training for 72 hours, and for the love of the ancestors, stop doing whatever it is you keep doing." He ignored approximately 80% of these recommendations immediately by walking to the training grounds. The change was subtle at first. Cadets who had previously laughed at his attempts now nodded as he passed. A Velen scout actually moved aside to let him through instead of pretending not to see him. Brutok gave him a respectful salute with all 4 arms, which Danny returned with his usual 2-armed version and almost fell over from the effort. "Easy there, small human," Brutok rumbled, steadying him with one massive hand. "You are still recovering." "I am fine," Danny lied, wincing as every muscle in his body screamed disagreement. "Just a little sore. Nothing a good breakfast will not fix. Do you guys have bacon here? Please tell me you have bacon." "I do not know what bacon is," Brutok admitted. "Then you have not lived, my friend," Danny said seriously. "We need to fix this immediately." The real surprise came when Zara approached him near the combat rings, her expression carefully neutral. She had a bruise on her shoulder where his lucky strike had landed, visible even against her crimson skin, a mark of defeat that she wore without attempting to hide it. "Danny Reeves," she said formally, stopping in front of him. "Zara," Danny replied, trying to stand up straighter and immediately regretting it. "Hey, sorry about the whole, tackling you and stealing your sword thing. That was probably not cool." "It was extremely not cool," Zara agreed. "It was also effective, which I respect more than I appreciate." She paused, seeming to struggle with her next words. "You fought well, terribly, but well." "That is the nicest mean thing anyone has ever said to me," Danny said, grinning despite the pain. "I have been thinking," Zara continued, her arms crossed. "You have skills that I do not, unconventional skills, disturbing skills, skills that make me question the nature of honor and combat." "I am sensing a but coming," Danny said. "But," Zara said firmly, "they are skills nonetheless, and I could learn from them. Just as you could learn proper technique from me, if you are interested in training together, properly this time, without the psychological warfare." Danny's eyebrows shot up. "Wait, are you asking to be training partners? Like on purpose, without being forced by instructors?" "Do not make this weird," Zara warned. "Too late, it is already weird. This is the best day of my life," Danny said, his smile widening. "Yes, absolutely, 100% yes. I would love to train with you. Can we start with you teaching me how to not get hit so much? Because honestly, my current strategy of absorbing damage until the opponent gets tired is working, but it really hurts." Despite herself, Zara smiled. "Just a small one, barely visible, but definitely there. We can work on your defensive positioning, and your footwork, and your grip, and essentially everything else." "Harsh but fair," Danny acknowledged. From his observation post overlooking the training grounds, Corval watched this exchange with Zara standing beside him, both of them holding steaming cups of what humans apparently called coffee and which Corval had discovered was basically liquid alertness with a side of bitterness. "The human has made an ally," Zara observed, out of his harshest critic no less. "Humans seem to have a talent for that," Corval said, taking a sip of his coffee and wondering why he kept drinking something that tasted like regret. "They get knocked down, they get back up, and somehow people respect them for it. It should not work, but it does." "What do you think happens when more of them arrive?" Zara asked. "When Earth sends not one strange boy but hundreds, thousands." Corval was quiet for a moment, watching Danny explain something to Zara with wild hand gestures that made him look like he was directing invisible traffic. Whatever he was saying made Brutok, who had joined them, laugh so hard his entire massive frame shook. "I think," Corval said slowly, that the galaxy is going to be very surprised. We have built our military traditions on strength, honor, and direct confrontation. We have created academies that teach proper technique and fair combat. We have codes of warfare that assume both sides will follow certain rules. And humans? Thora prompted. Humans do not care about any of that, Caraval said. They care about winning, about surviving, about getting back up one more time than they get knocked down. They will learn our techniques, sure, but then they will break them, modify them, combine them with things that make no sense until suddenly they work. He gestured at Danny, who was now demonstrating what appeared to be a wrestling move he had learned on Earth, something involving grabbing legs and leverage that made Zara look both interested and disturbed. They are going to change everything, Caraval continued. Not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through sheer stubborn refusal to lose and creativity born from 10,000 years of fighting themselves. And the worst part? They are going to do it while making terrible jokes and asking about food. As if on cue, Danny's voice carried across the training ground, clear and enthusiastic. "Hey, Caraval," he shouted, waving both arms. "Quick question. Does the cafeteria serve pizza, like actual pizza with cheese and tomato sauce? Because I have been here for 2 weeks, and I have not seen pizza once, and I am starting to think this might be a deal breaker." The training ground went silent. Every cadet, every instructor, every maintenance worker within earshot stopped what they were doing to stare at the human who had just defeated one of the Academy's top fighters in single combat, and was now primarily concerned about the availability of a specific Earth food. Caraval closed his 3 eyes and counted to 10 in 3 different languages. "No, Cadet Reeves," he called back, his voice carrying the exhaustion of someone who had aged 10 years in 2 weeks. "We do not serve pizza." "Can we get pizza?" Danny asked hopefully. "I know a great recipe. I could teach the kitchen staff. It is really easy, just dough and sauce and cheese and whatever toppings you want. Very versatile, extremely popular on Earth." "We will discuss your dietary concerns later," Caraval said. "Is that a yes or a no?" Danny pressed. "It is a please stop talking before I assign you extra training duties," Caraval replied. "Got it, noted. We'll follow up later," Danny said, giving a thumbs up. Zara was making a sound that might have been laughter or possibly a cry for help. He just fought the battle of his life yesterday, nearly died, earned the respect of his peers, and his primary concern is pizza. "That," Caraval said, finishing his coffee and immediately regretting it, "is humanity in a nutshell. They will fight wars, survive impossible odds, adapt to any challenge, and then ask what is for lunch. They are going to drive the entire galaxy insane." He turned away from the observation window, datapad in hand, already composing a message to Academy Command. Subject line: "Recommend increased human recruitment and revised training protocols. Also possibly pizza." "Come on," he said to Zara. "We have a lot of work to do. If one human can cause this much chaos, we need to be prepared for what happens when more arrive." "Are we preparing to fight them or recruit them?" Zara asked. "Yes," Caraval said simply. Behind them, Danny's laughter echoed across the training grounds, followed by Brutok's deeper rumble and even Zara's reluctant chuckle, the sound of 3 warriors from 3 different worlds, finding common ground through combat and apparently terrible Earth jokes. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, but Caraval did, and he was simultaneously terrified and oddly excited. Mostly terrified. Definitely ordering pizza.